Adam, I'm back with some more advice you didn't ask for. This week's topic is respecting the receiver, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing as I speak to you. So with that, let's get right into it. The first thing, this is a practice I'm trying to go through myself, so hopefully this advice lands for you. The first thing is you can tell the truth in a respectful manner, and that goes a long way. What do I mean? We all know those people who keep it real. They have these conversations and there's nothing but collateral damage behind them. They're like a bull in a china shop. And you don't like to see them coming, right? Usually you see them, here we go again. You can tell the truth and not sugarcoat it or water it down completely so that it's useless, but you also can do it in a respectful manner that respects the person you're trying to deliver that message to, especially if it's not a positive one. Keeping it real is lazy. Right? You're not putting forth the effort to be respectful to the person you're talking to. As a good friend of mine likes to say, you're a smart guy. Figure out a smarter way to say that. I think that's the right way to put it. Look, if your goal is to pick a fight, or if your goal is to cow someone into compliance, then okay, you're not having a conversation. You're just forcing someone into whatever position you were desiring. That might work in the short term. You might actually get the desired response in the short term, but you're burning leadership capital at an unsustainable rate. You can't keep that up forever. So understand that you don't have to insult them to tell them the truth or to correct them. That's not necessary. So the first point was tell the truth in a respectful manner. And that leads me sort of to my second point, which is something I've noticed in those who speak for a living. I want you to try this. Go watch people that you consider good speakers, those who stand up on stage and teach or give others instructions or messages that is done well, what you would consider done well. One of the things that I've noticed that they do well is letting the silence do the work. They make a point, or they ask a question, or make a statement, and then they stop talking. They let the impact sink in, or they allow the other person to respond. It's a simple thing, but I've noticed it more and more, and I think it's incredibly effective. The silence itself can do some heavy lifting in place of the chatter words we like to use, like and you get the point. It's like in normal everyday conversation, we see or feel ourselves in need of proving our own worth in the conversation. We have to fill in the blanks with something to appear smart or to appear interesting or whatever. It's a natural human tendency in conversation. Or to hear the other person say something at the beginning of their little monologue, and you have something you want to say back to that first thing, so you don't hear anything else that they're saying because you're too busy trying to hold on to the good thing that you want to say back to them as soon as they stop talking. It's not listening. That is conversation combat, for lack of a better term. I'm sure there's a better term out there. You get my point. So let the silence do the work. The next one's kind of... it sounds trite, and that's okay. Learn how to communicate effectively. What do I mean by that? I think the best way I heard it put was Kevin Hart, the comedian. He's written a couple of books, and one of them had a quote in it that said, "A good idea with bad communication is about as useful as a phone with a dead battery." So think about, historical examples. I don't know all the details, but I know that there is this kerfuffle about, well, Tesla was smarter and therefore, Edison somehow stole his stuff. And great. I don't know the details. My point here is I can tell you one thing from the outside looking in without knowing the details, and that is that Edison was good at communicating his point. He was able to sell it. And if you're in our business or whatever workplace, you're likely going to, if you're lucky, you're going to run into people who are incredibly smart, super good at what they do. I've met people who were brilliant beyond my capability, and that's fantastic. I feel lucky to have been around them. But if they lack the ability to communicate or sell that vision to the person that matters, who's going to pay for it or okay the project to go forward or fill in the blank, the customer who's going to receive it and ultimately sign on the dotted line, then it's just a good idea that dies on the vine. So learn to communicate effectively. That's the point of this. Learn how to sell. And that brings me to my next point, is that sometimes there is someone better to deliver your message. Don't get stuck in the need to, well, this is my idea, I need to sell it. Not necessarily. There may be somebody better to deliver that message. Good case in point. I've worked with some cultures that are very hierarchical in nature. It determines the place you sit at the table, determines where you stand, and who addresses who first. And so, if you happen to be dealing with a structure that's like that, it's beneficial, even if it's my idea as the lower ranking individual. It's in our mutual benefit for me to hand that off to the most senior ranking person in the room, because it may be a good idea if it comes from me, but it's the idea we're going to execute if it comes from a vice president. There are many other examples. I think you get the point. Sometimes there is someone better to deliver that message, so let that happen. But this is a double-edged sword. Just don't use this as an excuse to shirk your responsibility. If there's a hard conversation you have to have and you need to have it, don't shirk it by trying to get someone else to do it. It's easy to use this as an excuse, so be careful there. All right, so very simple one is next, but it irritates me, so I'm going to bring it up because I'm that guy and I'm the one speaking to the camera. Check your spelling and your grammar in your communication. We spend a lot of time writing emails or whatever your instant messenger happens to be at your workplace. Few things are more irritating because they're completely preventable as misspelling someone's name or writing a sentence that takes them an extra 20 seconds to decipher because you didn't bother to check your grammar. Just read over the message before you send it. And yes, I mean every time. It's not that hard. It makes it far more receivable on the other end, and it is respectful of the receiver, which is what this is all about. That goes along with another one when crafting communications is get to the point. We all know people who ramble. I'm guilty of it as well. Don't make the person that you're sending the point to or asking the question of, don't make them sift through this long rambling message to get to the point. Spoon feed the point to them. Give it to them right up front. People are busy. Don't make your message heavier than necessary, especially not, I would argue, is if you're trying to look smart. And we're all guilty of it. We want to explain to them how well researched we are on this particular topic. Not always necessary. If you want something, say, I want this, here's why, and give them background later on, but ask the question up front. Be very brief with your time. All right, last one, and I will leave you alone on this wonderful Sunday because it's beautiful outside. Know when to be interesting and when to make the other person feel interesting in a conversation. This is a stolen one from Chris Williamson of the Modern Wisdom podcast, but he tells this story about a woman who was of some eminence at some time. It doesn't matter who it was. And she was having dinner with the two candidates that were running for public office on consecutive nights. And afterwards, someone asked her about the two candidates and what she thought. And she said, well, the first dinner, I left thinking, this is one of the most interesting men I've ever met. He's outstanding. Head and shoulders above most people I've ever met. Very impressive. But when I left the second dinner, I felt like I was the most interesting person he had ever met. And that stuck with her. That second person is the one who went on to win. Is that the only cause? Who knows? The point's still taken. Understand when you need to be interesting versus when other people need to feel interesting in the conversation. It goes a long way. And there's a hint here. Trying to make others feel interesting, and you will become interesting to them. It's built in. There's an easy hack for this. And it's actually being interested in the person you're talking to. If you're actively interested in what they have to say and what their position is on something, you've solved the problem. They feel a certain way. Remember how they make it. Put it a different way. People may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. That matters a great deal. So understand when to be interesting and when to make others feel interesting. The talk is usually not a competition, so act accordingly. Okay, that's enough for this Sunday. I'm going to try and do these a little more off the cuff, if you will. These seem to stack up faster, and I come up with ideas faster than I can put them out. So I think a few more of these in the unstructured format that you just saw is what you're going to get. Hopefully it's helpful. If you ignore them, great. I'm enjoying talking to a camera. So either way, love you, brother. Send your brother my best. Congratulations on graduation. Bye.